very substantially. You can compare that with their peak not so long ago, and you have numbers of 30%, 25%. In Detroit, as an example, it's down by over 50%. Congratulations. And in New Orleans, where they've done a terrific job. Detroit, as an example, it's down by over 50%. Congratulations. And in New Orleans, where they've done a terrific job, they're down 65%. It's down by 30 states have just one case or less per 1,000 people, far fewer cases per capita, as an example, than Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Ireland, Switzerland, Singapore.
I don't know what's going on with the audio. Hold on.
The Netherlands, Austria, Sweden, Germany, the United Kingdom.
Hold on, everybody. Sorry. Oh, that's what it is. Give me a second.
And based on the record low price of oil that you've been seeing, it's at a level
Okay,
that's
hopefully somebody out there can
very
hear me.
interesting to a lot of people. We're filling up our national petroleum reserves.
Okay, hopefully somebody out there can hear me.
And we're looking to put as much as 75 million barrels into the reserves themselves. That would top it out.
Sorry, everybody. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here.
We're also pushing for the deal to include an additional 75 billion, our deal that we're talking about. $75 billion for hospitals and other healthcare providers. Many providers and their employees have taken a huge financial hit in recent weeks, and visits, elective procedures, surgeries, etc., etc., were canceled.
That's Trump.
They can all get back online. They'll get it done. The hospitals have really been fantastic. The hospitals, they've stepped up to the plate, really done a great job. We appreciate it so much. For areas less affected by the virus,
These are a lot of baseball
issued
analogies.
new recommendations about how to safely resume elective treatments. HHS has also distributed the first $30 billion in
Okay, welcome everybody.
to 1 million healthcare providers.
I've got the chat window there on the left. That should be the chat from everyone. So at this point, we should be able to see everybody on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, broadcasting live on all three platforms. So chat with each other, chat with me, enjoy. Let's listen to this guy.
Pence spoke with governors from all 50 states about our unified effort to defeat the virus. He had a great call. It was a great call, very positive.
Was it perfect? Was it a perfect call?
Prior to the call, we provided each governor with a list of the names, addresses, and phone numbers of the labs where they can find additional testing capacity within their states. Many, many labs. We're providing you with a list. We'll show it to you now. If you need it, we'll give you the details. But hundreds and hundreds of labs are ready, willing, and able. Some of the governors, like as an example, the governor from Maryland didn't really understand the list. He didn't understand too much about what was going on. So now I think he'll be able to do that. It's pretty simple.
The governor couldn't understand. Kemp is the governor that doesn't understand. He's opening up the whole state.
We'll work with them and work with all of the governors. Similar to the situation with ventilators, states need to assess their complete inventory of available capacity. Some states have far more capacity than they actually understand, and it is a complex subject, but some of the governors didn't understand it. The
governor's just too stupid.
Illinois did not understand his capacity. Not simply ask the federal government to provide unlimited support. I mean, you have to take the support we have,
your job.
But we are there to stand with the governors and to help the governors, and that's what we're doing. And they have a tremendous capacity that we've already built up, and you'll be seeing that. We're going to be introducing a couple of the folks in a little while to talk about it. I want to draw your attention to Governor Cuomo's remarks during his press conference today. He said the president is right. The state's testing is up to the states to do, which will implement the tests and logistically coordinate the tests. We have about 300 labs in New York, and they're great labs, actually. and it's my job to coordinate those 300 labs. I think the president's right when he says that the states should lead, and the governor's they're really getting it together in New York. A lot of good things are happening in New York, and I think the governor's going to come in to see us tomorrow. He's coming to the Oval Office tomorrow afternoon. Andrew is going to be coming in with some of his people, so we look forward to that.
Trump's going to have a play date.
Some of the articles that just recently came about.
Hey, Marfa. Hey, Maggie. Hey, Joanna.
I put out
hey,
a statement
Pink.
today for a
Trump
month.
does ply.
Ventilator. That's all people could talk
He's very
about was
pliable.
ventilators. And we did a
You
great
get a
job
ventilator,
with
and
that.
you get a
Built
ventilator.
a lot of ventilators, to put it mildly. We have so many now that at some point soon we're going to be helping Mexico and
Are you the ventilator
Italy
king?
and other countries. We'll be sending them ventilators, which they desperately need. They were in a position.
He does.
they were
He
not
is
in a
low
position
energy
to
today,
build
Chris.
them themselves, but we have thousands being built. Every state has
Thousands.
They have the ventilators. If they don't, we have almost 10,000 in our Federal Reserve, our stockpile, as they call it. And we did a great
it's a
job with
stockpile.
the ventilators. Unfortunately, the press doesn't cover it, other than the fair press. But so then you say, "Gee, they need
fair
ventilators.
press.
We don't need ventilators," and that's under pressure. We did that. Nobody that needed a ventilator in this country didn't get one. And a story that just came out, how the media completely blew the Trump ventilator story. I'm sure you'd love to see that. That's by
Well, we can't see it,
Rich
so
Lowry.
sorry.
respected
That's just not the way I had the screen set up.
journalist in person. How the media completely blew the Trump
I'm
ventilator
guessing that
story,
even
unfortunately
if we
it
could
did.
see it, we couldn't see
And
it
here's another
because
one that just
you're
came
holding a
out.
paper, and it's a
Val
good
Smith,
distance from the camera.
ventilator
See how that works?
shortage
Oh,
that
you're going to show us that one too?
The ventilator
Here,
shortage that
everybody can read
wasn't-
that very clearly.
because we
There it
got
is.
fixed.
Everybody get the details.
And we're also going to help the states, by the way, stockpile ventilators. So if a thing like this should happen again, they've got them. The
Under
stories
pressure.
on testing are all over the place, and we're actually in good shape. I'm going to have the vice president and others speak to you about that, but we're in very good
Trump
shape.
has a huge
on
stockpile,
testing, and
Anthony.
we're getting better all the time. We're going to see some interesting things.
Got to
I
admit,
thought
we're
before
getting
I,
better,
went any
except
further,
the
though,
ones who
I'd like to have
die.
General Semonite, who's done an incredible job, tell you where we are. You know, we're still building beds in hospitals for people that need them.
The letter that Kim
I guess
Jong
the
didn't
hospital
send.
business general is getting pretty much closed out now, but we're creating a lot of space for people just in case, and in some cases they probably will be using them. But I thought the general, he's been so impressive and done such a great job. I thought on behalf of the services and on behalf of the federal government, he'd say a few words about what we're doing right now. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Bring in the general.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Just want you to know that on behalf of all of us in the Department of Defense, our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those patients and all those victims that have been affected by this
Italy
terrible virus.
probably does
And
still
the
need
President and Vice
ventilators. He said
President talk
Germany
all the
needed
time about
ventilators the
heroes,
other day, but
who
they
have been
don't.
out there. I've seen the doctors, I've seen the nurses, and all those that have worked very, very hard. And we're just so proud to be part of this noble calling. For my team, I really made it very, very simple. I said there's three legs.
I think I'm not
of this
synced on
stool,
my audio,
and they all
so
have
I'm gonna
S's.
adjust that.
There's sites. With
Somebody tell me
hospitals. We've got to worry about
if
supplies. And
I
we've
go
got to
back
worry
and
about
sync
staff.
here.
And so right when Governor Cuomo called the
Okay.
president about
Here we go.
almost
3,
30 days
2,
ago, he said, I
1.
need some help worrying about what could be tens of thousands of hotel room,
Let me know if
hospital
I'm
room
out of sync.
shortages. So the president and Secretary of Defense asked us to fly to Albany with a team. And on the way up, we understood how complex of a challenge this was. And we knew there's no way you can solve a complex catastrophe.
camera guy just about
with a
zoomed in on
complicated
Trump there to
solution.
get his
We needed
reaction.
a very, very
This
simple
is basically
solution
Trump watching
to be able
everything.
to then work with HHS, to be able to work with FEMA, to be able to work with the Vice President's task force, and then to be able to power this down all the way down to the local level. Some
This
of the
doesn't
governors
focus on
asked
anything.
us to try to build a hospital in a parking lot or a field in 2 or 3 weeks. You can't physically
Thanks,
do
Gary.
that. So what we said was, let's go to where there's an
Thanks, Martha.
existing facility.
Martha.
I'm going to kind of make this in 2 big pots. Those that are either hotel rooms or college dormitories, small.
Well, cool. We got
rooms,
people
or those
chatting
that
on
are
3
in
different
real large
platforms here, and you
areas,
can all see
like
each other if you're
field
looking at
houses or
the main
convention
screen.
centers.
I don't know
And
if you
we
guys can see that
designed those
properly or
standard
not, but there it
facilities
is.
that could be
I
either
can, and that's what
non-COVID
counts.
Or COVID, and then we got that approved here at the federal government to be able to then power that back down. So we went to Governor Cuomo, and he said right up front, I love the concept. Need you in the Javits Center. I'm ready to start having you work tomorrow afternoon. So when we flew back that afternoon, the next day, we basically built this standard design and then continued to be able to power it down.
Sherry,
all the way down
he is an
through
overloaded
the rest
coat
of the
rack.
team. So I just want to show you a couple slides here, and we'll
Oh,
kind of
good.
let you know where we're at right now, Mr. President, for governors and mayors. And we said, what do you
So
think your demand
you're not able to
is
see
gonna
everybody's
be? And
chat,
based
just
on a lot of the
yours.
modeling that's been in this
Whatever
room
platform
here,
you're on
we
right
were
now.
able to understand when the peak curve was, but we also
After we get rid of the
were
slides.
able to
Oh, let me get rid of me
understand
too.
where's the
Sorry,
bed
guys.
shortage. So then these 1,100 facilities right now today, sir, we're actually executing 32 different facilities. That's on the order of merit of about 16,000 beds. 8 of those are all done. We've still got a lot more to complete. And in the next week and a half, we're going to complete about 15 more facilities. We've got some pending. Some mayors and governors are still wondering, do they have enough bed space? And what's important here is we need a very agile plan. You can't do something 3 weeks ago and think that this is going to continue to stay, because this virus gets a vote. And this entire team, the federal government, has tried to be as agile as they can, supporting those states.
This virus
and those
gets a vote.
The beauty of
Let's
the
open the
plan,
country
though,
up.
is it doesn't have to be built by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. So we designed
I like
about
this guy,
extra
by the way.
52 facilities. We
He's
gave
awesome.
those to the governors, and I've got to be very, very.
He's an engineer. He just gets
laudatory
shit
to the
done.
governors. They then imposed and put a lot of those on the ground and did those themselves. So let's go. I'm just going to show you some real simple pictures here. Go to the next slide if you don't mind.
Ooh, pictures.
So this is an example of the Javits Center, and you've heard the president talk about it quite a few times. This one, about 2,100 bed spaces. What you get is about a 11 or 12-foot square
Anthony
cubicle.
Pence doesn't actually move.
There is lights in there. There's a nurse
There's a certain
call,
amount
so
of
if you need to
battery
be able to
operation
call
that
the
goes
nurse
on there, and
station.
he wears
There
himself
are
out pretty
nurse
quickly. He gets
stations throughout.
tired,
There's
the
pharmacies
poor little guy.
throughout. This one started as non-COVID, but then we came back in and put in central oxygen. So everybody has oxygen right behind their bed to be able to take care of those patients. And again, built this one, about 1,000-pound
That's
patients
amazing.
treated. Let's go to the next one. I was up in Detroit with Governor Whitmer, and she walked us through and told us her intent. Here's where she needed to do this in the TCF Center. You'll see all the cubicles that are laid out. This is right in the middle of a convention floor where there might be like a boat show or a car show, and then went in and built 970 different capabilities there. And again, a lot of great work by my guys in the Corps of Engineers and the rest of the mayors and the city's team all pulling together. Let's go to the next one. This is called
Agreed.
McCormick Place. Governor Pritzker
Trump's
sat
off
us
to the
down
side
and said,
going,
"Here's
"What
kind
about
of
me?
our
Did I do a
intent of what you
fantastic
want to
job?"
do." Mayor Lightfoot walked us through.
I sent boats.
We went into another large convention center. This is actually 3,000 bed spaces, a very, very large build, and got this one done in a relatively short time. And then here's another one that kind of
For those of you
helps
who've never built a
understand the
hospital, this is
dynamic.
amazing
Go to the next
stuff.
one, please. This is in Miami Beach, and I flew in to see Governor DeSantis. And my guys had kind of scoped out about 450 beds, and he said, Todd, how long is it going to take to build this? And we kind of said probably till the 27th of April. And he went to his health people, and he said, how long do you need? And they said,
Kim,
"The
I
date we
cannot
need
imagine
is the
Trump speaking
21st
like
of
this.
April." And I told my guys,
He's
you don't have till the
articulate,
27th.
and he's finishing
Figure out how to get
sentences.
it done by the 20th. This is where you don't get to build.
Oh, he already
you
has,
have the
Martha.
perfect solution.
Trump has said,
You've
"I
got to be
gave
able
them
to
a
get the
hospital."
mission
Trump has said,
essentials
"I
done.
sent them the
Lives are on
ship."
the line here, and we've got to be able to get everything done to be able to save those lives.
Yeah, I wish the camera
Let's
would
go to
just
the
stay on
last one
Trump here.
This is one we're doing right now, Colorado. This is in Denver, another gigantic convention center. You'll see all the different cubicles here to be able to just bring in that oxygen, 6-inch copper pipe that comes in, and it's all piped throughout the entire convention center.
Reminds
6
me of a
miles
tech company
pipe
I
that's
worked
able
at.
to go in to be able to make that happen. And in closing, I just want to be able to say that we are very, very focused in the Corps of Engineers getting this done. But this is all about the team, the federal team, the state team, the local team, the vice president's task force, and a lot of the people sitting here have informed us of how fast we need to go. And it goes back to, again, all the governors and the mayors that make this happen. But I want to reiterate, President Trump has called me 3 times, and Secretary Esper has been on the phone at least one of those times and said, what else do we need to do to set you up for success? Is there any other knobs we can turn to be able to help you go? And you think about that equation of those 3 S's, I think that with the federal government and the mayors and the cities here, we've effectively taken that first S out of the equation. And so I can't tell you, of all the things I've done in my career, this is a noble calling to be able to step up and save American lives. So with that, sir, I thank you very much.
Fantastic, Jeff. Thank you very much. Anybody have a question for the general while he's here? Anybody? Because I think it's very self-explanatory. Done an incredible job. Jeff, do you have a question?
Are there more projects, sir, beyond the ones that you've just identified that you'll be working on?
So about a week ago, we thought we were about capped at 26. What we're seeing is, and I said the virus gets a vote, we're seeing some of these curves are stretching out where we might have thought we only had 5 or 6 days. We actually have a couple weeks now. Other ones we're seeing exactly the opposite. So where we didn't think there was some, and I'm not going to go into locations here, but we are definitely getting requests in. We've got 6 more requests in just in the last 4 or 5 days. They're a little bit smaller facilities in more remote areas, but our job, we still, if we have enough time to go build,
touched
we
my
want to
head.
get in there, do the assessment. We work for the mayor and the city and the governor here, and we can still get them done if the mayors and those elected officials make a fast enough decision.
You might say while you're here, we're building, the general's in charge of the wall on the southern border, and we want to build 450 miles of wall, and it's very much under construction. You might give them a little bit of an update. How are we doing with the wall?
Yeah, tell us about
So,
the
sir, I
wall.
think the
That's
most
what we're all here
important thing,
for.
and you stress this, and Secretary Esper stressed this. There's really several different priorities here. Our number one priority in Department of Defense and the Corps of Engineers is to protect the team, protect the force. No matter what we do, we've got to continue to take care of our civilians and our service members out there. And so every single thing we're doing, whether we're building for the VA or we're building for civil works projects or for the Department of Defense or building on the southwest border, we are going out of our way. I talked to my commanders this morning. We've got over 4,000 contractors that are on the ground out there, and we've had no positives as of this morning, knock on wood. Same thing with my 400 employees. We're testing them, not necessarily with a more stringent test, but with temperatures to be able to make sure that everybody's safe and everybody goes out of their way to do things the right way.
Temperatures are not testing at all.
Construction is
That's
going very,
screening.
very smooth. What we're seeing is our
And
contractors
that
are
misses about
extremely
half the
focused.
cases.
Now that we've got a good clear path both on the CBP program as well as some of the DoD program, we, I think, very well postured. It's a very, very aggressive build, but we're well postured to be able to meet your expectations for a 450 by the end of December 2020.
And we're over 160 miles.
164 as of today, sir.
164 miles, and we'll have it done sometime pretty early next year. Very exciting.
Yes, sir.
And you might just say one thing, the quality of that wall in terms of its power for stopping people that shouldn't be coming into our country.
So same thing. If you have a
powerful
standard design
walls
that you trust in and it works very well, I've got a pat on the back, Commissioner Morgan. He was very adamant to continue to be able to make sure that it supports his agents, and so we've got a design now that certainly does that. And then
Frickin'
we've got
Canadians.
a phenomenal contractor workforce that's in there, my Corps of Engineer employees, and it's going in well. We don't see any significant problems, and I think it's also important to point out that we want to do this the right way. So we try to balance this with environmental considerations are out there. We're trying to do due diligence when it comes to anything to do with any of the citizens who are affected. We're trying to make sure that we're protecting all of the things that we need to protect and try to find that balance where we can both meet the
So 1,200 mile wall long border, and we're putting in 450 miles.
So that everybody gets a vote and everybody has a fair shake.
That's a long way from every mile and 65 feet tall.
At the recreation sites that the Army Corps of Engineers operates, how the access is going there and whether or not there are restrictions.
So I'm an engineer. I take my guidance from some of these experts sitting on the bench over here. And when the president says turn on America, what we initially did, like many, many other governors. They,
Yeah, I saw
shut
that,
down
Chris, the
beaches,
60
shut
Minutes
down
story.
cities.
You guys, if you didn't
With
see
my
60
commanders
Minutes
this morning,
yesterday,
as soon as we
go to
think it's safe,
cbs.com or
turn
whatever,
back
watch
on.
it there. It's
I
a
mean,
fascinating
parking out
episode.
there
It's
at
just
rec area where you're 500 feet
a
away from
brutally
everybody in
disturbing
camper
episode.
is
It's a
probably
beautiful
the threat.
episode.
We'll
It's a
continue
very
to take guidance from the
powerful. No, see, it would be powerful. You
But
could
where
use
we get green
powerful there.
lights
That's
to
where you
continue
would
to
use
put our
powerful.
rec areas full up
It's a
and let everybody
tremendous
go back
episode.
out there and do things the safe way. I mean, we work for the administration, so I want to do it safe, but I don't want to be the last guy that turns things on. Not at all. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for just walking through some of the efforts. Do you have any? Can you say anything about whether or not there are any specific efforts in communities that are hardest hit, like Black communities or Latino communities, communities of color? Are the Army Corps of Engineers doing anything that would be building any sort of temporary facilities for those communities?
So we basically key off what the city asked for, the city and the governor. There are a couple specific areas that certain city mayors have asked us for. Again, I'm not going to go into details, but we basically, if they go in and say, I'm very worried about a hot spot on this side of town, town or a specific community here, we will do, and that's what the administration is charged us to do, is whatever we can do to be most responsive. We just don't want ever to have an ambulance pull up to the back of a hospital and somebody says,
Ambulance.
"We're out of room. Go to the next hospital down." So that's
I
what
want to
we're
call
trying
an
make sure
ambulance.
that bed space is available.
Take me to the
And so
library.
far, everything we built has been ahead of need. In other words,
I shouldn't make
we're
fun of
able
this
to
guy. I
finish
love
the
this guy.
building 2 or 3 days before it's needed. Thank you, man.
I just love the way people talks.
So now you have a choice. You can stay and watch these wonderful people ask us really nice questions, or you can go
No,
back to building back.
no, I will leave. I'm kind of busy.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. You can stay and watch these wonderful people.
It's really great.
You can sit here. You can stay for my whole rally.
Terrific gentlemen. We have a lot of great people doing that kind of thing that they really have to get recognition for the incredible job they're doing.
Their jobs,
'Cause I don't
yes.
think anybody else could do it.
They are.
Nothing like that. And
No,
that's on top of
like
thousands
somebody
and
working at
thousands
Arby's
of
could not
hospitals.
do what
And, he
the
built,
general does.
just
That
in
is
New
true.
York alone, 4 hospitals and 2,900 beds, and got them done so quickly. Nobody saw anything like it. Fortunately, we haven't had to use too many of them.
Well, no, we've
and that's okay.
seen things like that
That's
before.
Probably better news than having to use them all.
I mean, there's
right?
been wars where the
Because a lot of
armies
good
have
things are
built
happening in New York
hospitals
and
in
elsewhere.
tents.
So through the public-private partnerships and deregulation, the federal government has already made immense testing capabilities available, but some states need to take action to fully utilize it. To date, the United
Again, it's
States
the state's
has conducted
fault.
millions more tests than any other country. You can add them all up, and they don't catch us. And our numbers are
That's not
doubling
true.
almost on a certainly on a monthly basis, but almost on a weekly basis. We're moving very rapidly, far at a number
No.
nobody thought possible.
Again, not true.
And we'll be doubling our number of daily tests.
Everyone
The
wanted
government's
it to be
bringing their
possible.
state
Everybody
fleet
thought it was possible.
online through the capability that they have. We have tremendous capability out there already existing, and we explained that to the
My
governor
loins are
today.
girded,
Mike
Jim.
And all of the people explained it very strongly to the governors. They really get it now, I think. As the experts have explained, this capacity is sufficient to allow states to conduct diagnostic testing to treat patients, as well as contact tracing to contain outbreaks and monitoring to pinpoint potential hotspots during phase 1. And there are some hotspots, and we have them pinpointed, and they can really cover it very, very nicely when they know exactly where to go, and they're being told where to go. And also these locations where they're going, and some of them are federal. Some of the governors didn't realize they were allowed to use federal locations. They are. And we have a booklet of the federal locations. We can hold
What?
it up. I think you'll show that. Maybe we'll hold it up now. Yeah, okay, fine. But you see,
Oh, he's talking about testing site. I kind of tuned out there for a little while.
these are all locations where they can go,
It's the rum.
which is really pretty amazing. This is just one page out of many. Look at this.
I have a drinking problem.
These are all locations.
Specifically getting it in my mouth.
That's a lot of locations. And they can all...
Oh, yeah, hold on. Can everyone read that? Did everybody see their hometown? Yeah,
That's
Tacoma!
very much. That's more than anybody thought. But
Thanks for
it's
holding
already
that
there.
up, Trump.
They have to use it. That's all. They have to use it. Some weren't aware. Some were very much aware. Some weren't aware. My administration also continues to support states with our massive operation to deliver masks, gowns, gloves, and other vital supplies. Admiral Polachek and his team at FIFA are really what a job they've done. And Pete, what a job he's done. They're calling on Easter Sunday to make sure everyone's okay. But they're using detailed data about supply chains to track the deployment of 1 billion.
Oh, Chris, that was
pieces
Des Moines,
of protective
Iowa.
equipment
Sorry.
through private distributors every 2 weeks. So what we're doing is we're delivering a number that nobody anywhere in the world is delivering. FEMA is working closely with Dr. Birx and the distributors.
It's always a
to
competition.
prioritize
Why can't we
supply
just take care of... Why can't we put
resources where
America
they're
first and not
most
worry about
needed.
everybody
We're
else?
Finding the location that they have to get to that location. We have locations that are very important to get to and
FIFA.
get to them fast, and that's where they're going. So we have a very strong priority. This pandemic has reaffirmed.
I almost
the
want to go
importance of
back and hear him
keeping
say
vital
FIFA.
supply chains at home We cannot outsource.
Oh,
our
guys, I have a
independence. We
new
cannot be
fact check on
reliant
all the
foreign
testing.
nations. I've been saying
There
this
you
for
go.
a long time.
See?
If we've learned one
Huh?
thing, it's let's
Right
do
there.
it here, let's build it here,
Right
let's
there,
make it
huh?
here.
That proves
It's the
everything.
greatest country in the world. We've got to start bringing our
I
supply
rest
chains
my
back.
face.
Somebody years ago got this crazy idea, let's build all over the place and let's have parts, let's have a screw for a car delivered and made in a country that's far away. And let's have a fender made someplace else, and let's do this, and let's do that.
It wasn't a
and let's
crazy
put it all
idea. It was
together.
economy. It's
And,
always
I
money.
like making it right here in the USA. And I think we've learned a lot about that, and especially maybe when it comes to pharmaceutical products. We've also
And you're gonna force
conducted
companies
major
to do that, are
military
you?
operations providing cities and states with additional medical capacity, and the incredible 1,800 men and women from the Army Corps of Engineers you just met with Todd. It's the job they've done is incredible. But we have nurses, doctors, we have experts in every field all over. Spoke with Governor Cuomo, spoke with Mayor de Blasio, spoke with many of the other governors that
They're in
are
love
friendly,
soccer.
and
You know,
I think
like
I'm friendly
American
with
kids.
Just about all of them, if you can believe it. But I've gotten friendly with a lot
Yeah,
of them.
well,
I've gained a lot of respect
Here's the
for
thing,
a
and
lot
I've
of
said
the
this
governors,
before.
both
Trump
Republican
had
and
no friends as a
Democrat.
child, so it's always about relationship and who's
Really
his
good
friend,
people, some really good
which
talent.
we've learned.
But we're sending a lot
We
of
knew
our
that
medical
already,
people,
but
not
it's
only
been
our
reinforced during this
construction
crisis.
people like Todd.
Ask Jay
Seminite,
Inslee.
but a lot of our medical people are being sent all over the country to different locations. New York City, New York State, New Jersey. I spoke with Phil today. He's doing a terrific job in New Jersey, but New Jersey got hit very, very hard. Phil Murphy, governor. From the day this crisis began, America launched a scientific mobilization of colossal size and scale. Someday they'll be able to write the true story.
Yeah,
Because nobody's seen
the
anything
focus
like
box
it.
doesn't go away. That's just my camera,
Fake news just
and right now I
refuses
can't
to
exactly
cover
go
it
out and buy
correctly,
another
but that's
camera.
okay. The people are
And
understanding,
the-
and that's what matters.
The
to
decent
me.
ones online are
There are
all
now
sold out.
72 active
Once this
trials
started,
underway
everybody
across
wanted to
the
do a
United
webcast,
States,
and
researching
the
dozens
churches
of
bought
therapies
all the
and
equipment for doing
treatments,
this.
and another
And so I kind of have to make do with
211
what I have.
in the planning stages. They're getting, I mean, they're literally mobilizing.
But
with
yeah, I can't make the
therapeutics.
I don't think I
and
can make the
also
focus
on
box go. If
vaccines.
anybody has an idea of how I can make
Tremendous
this
progress
focus
is
box
being
go
made
away,
on
let me know.
vaccines, and I must say on therapeutics. I mean, frankly, if I had my choice, give me the therapeutics right now, because that would help people right now.
Because you
We
can't
some
have the
things that
vaccine
I
right
think
now.
are working, not
You
only
don't have a
working,
choice.
but we have some incredible things that look like they could be an answer. But we'll know being tested,
Remdesivir.
working out right now. This includes their therapies designed to attack the virus, as well as others that would hinder its replication, reduce the rate of infection, control the immune response, or transfer life-saving antibodies from the blood of recovered patients. And one of the incredible things that we've seen, and Mike and I were talking about it before, is the fact
Mike and Ike?
oftentimes somebody
He's
gets
got
very
candy?
ill from the plague, okay, from this horrible scourge, and they get better and they recover. And the first thing they say is, I want to give
Scourge.
my blood. That's happened. The doctors have
Yeah.
told me it's happened so much. I want to give my blood. I want to give my blood. And they're doing that. But tremendous things are happening. You'll be seeing that over the weeks. I think we'll be talking about it in the not too distant future. Johnson & Johnson's very well along on vaccines. Again, the vaccines have to be tested. The therapeutics are for now. But a lot of good things are happening on both. But ultimately, we also hope to
Yeah,
prevent
Ramsey,
infection through a safe,
Brazil had a
very safe vaccine. And,
hydroxychloroquine
that'll be a great thing when we
quin.
have that. And we will have
Listen to me, I'm Trump study,
so with that, I'd
and
like to
a quarter of the people
introduce
died.
Admiral Guar and Brad Smith to discuss some of the incredible things that have been done, and they really are what they've been able to do in a very, very short period of time with and equipment. You're going to see equipment that you haven't seen before. And if you just come up, Brad, if you guys would.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that right now, Gary.
Display of some of the equipment that we have and some of the things
There might be
that are
just a
happening,
button on top. I've
having
looked
to
in the
do with
menu, but
testing.
there's a bunch of buttons on
Testing's a
top.
big
Hold
word.
on.
Remember, it was all ventilators.
Well, you guys don't hold.
And the
Just keep
reason it was
watching
all
him. He's talking.
ventilators, I said, there's no way he'll ever be able to catch this one. And not only did we catch it, we are
I gotta
now the
listen.
king of ventilators all over the world.
There he is, the ventilator
Thousands
king.
being made a week.
Okay.
And
I
they're
was
very
waiting
high
for that.
quality. And that
I want that to be his
wasn't playing
campaign
well.
ad.
So then they said, testing. Oh, we'll get them on testing. Well, testing is much easier than ventilator. Ventilators are big machines that are very complex and are very expensive.
If it's so much easier, why
need
don't we
real-
have tests?
You need a group of people that really know what they're doing. We took auto lines, we took a lot of different people, and now we've done that. But it used to be ventilators. Now it's testing. And I think
Yeah,
the Admiral,
because we
and I
want
think
to
that
get the country
Brad will show
open,
you some
open,
things
open.
that you haven't seen that are really very spectacular, having to do with testing. We're way advanced. The list I showed you, these are places you can go if you're in the States. 5,000 different machines.
Remember, I have a copy of that list,
5,000.
everyone.
They're all over
There you
the
go.
country.
That's the Western
And
United States,
international also, but these are all
Central
over
and
the country.
South,
But you'll see
and then East
something now
Coast.
that's really
So-
eye-popping in terms of what they've done.
if you
And
missed the
they've done
numbers,
this under great pressure.
right there, just call
They've come up
right
with
there.
things under great pressure that are absolutely amazing. So please, if you would. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I want to talk about a couple things today, a little bit different than I've spoken about before. Since early March, we've really been focusing on two key concepts for testing. Number one, to assure and expand supplies in the U.S. market. This is really critical because we were talking about really a cottage industry with very minimal suppliers that we were asking to supply over a 2-week period of time the normal production that would be for at least a year. And as simple as a swab is not a swab, it's not a swab. And we need to be very careful that when we put something in a person and tell them a test result, that it's really correct. The second component is to secure sufficient supplies at
So my swabs won't
during
work?
this time of peak disease, where we could alleviate any maldistributions within the state. This is the FEMA process of requesting and sending things out and also supporting outbreaks. So starting many
This is
weeks
the guy,
ago,
by the way, who
starting in
promised
my office
27
many
million
weeks ago,
tests by the end of
we
March.
assembled a multidisciplinary team of really incredible people. The medical side of the equation, which I represent, the laboratory side of the equation, high-tech side of the equation, logistics and operation. And Brad Smith is his day job as director of the
Oh, I
Center
looked for an
Medicare and
autofocus button,
Medicaid
by the way. There
Services,
was one,
an
but it
incredibly
still,
important,
it didn't do this.
component of our country's CMS system, building the future healthcare system, but has done a really incredible job operationally and logistically in bringing everyone together. We have focused on every piece of the supply chain that relates to testing, down to the most minute detail, and he's going to talk to you about some of that. But that started in the second week of March with starting an airlift, because the only supplier, the main supplier of swabs at that time, was a place in Italy that was completely shut off because of the outbreak in Italy. So Admiral Polubchak arranged Greytail Air Force planes to go to Italy to bring millions of swabs back to Secure. That's just how it started, and it's expanded since then. The second part is we've been really marrying, and this has been the beauty.
Wow,
the
that sounds like
logistics and
quite a
supplies to the
never
overall
mind.
strategy. Two pieces of strategy. Number one, what is the overall testing strategy? And Dr. Birx has had just an elegant strategy in the past, but even more important in the future, when we make sure we take care of indigent populations and those most vulnerable. So the clinical, the contact tracing, and the monitoring of those who are at most risk. We've also married it to the strategy, and you've heard more than you wanted to know about it, that a small machine that's point of care is good for certain things, but it's not going to test 5,000 people over a short period of time. So the small machines, the medium machines, and the large machines, and how to contextualize them. And the third thing, before I give it to Brad, which is very important, and it's really critical, is coordinating the research, the epidemiology, and the FDA regulatory process. And why is that so important? When we started 5 weeks ago, if we wanted to test this many people with the technology we had, we would have used about 80% of the Strategic National Stockpile in PPE just to do testing. We needed an innovation. That innovation was to be able to test out of the anterior nose with a completely different kind of swab. It sounds very mundane, but if you don't do that, you can't get the testing to scale. That allowed us to really go to widespread
Brian,
testing.
I think you're right.
Last week,
Oh,
moving
no
to
more
polyester
movie recording,
swabs,
everybody.
which is going to open up millions of new swabs onto the market. But that's a regulatory science and innovation step that had to co-occur with this. And with that, I'm going to let Brad talk about some of the details that he has really shepherded over the past weeks in ways that have truly been amazing and incredibly impressive to me.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor of a lifetime to be here and serving in this way. I've been working under Dr. Birx's and Admiral Gerard's leadership over the past several weeks
Yeah,
to
you
help
have.
increase the supply of
leadership.
testing across the United States. As you all know, there's really three parts that you need to make the test work. First, you need the machine, which is Dr. Birx.
I was like, whatever happened to Malcolm in the Middle?
A very, very large number of those across the United States. It's about making sure that we're taking advantage of them. The second part of the testing is making sure that we have the collection supplies to actually be able to collect the specimen, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the third part is making sure that you have the materials you need to support
Larry, this
the
is
machine,
slightly
to
delayed.
ensure that you can actually process
I think
the
I'm
test
about
once it
10
gets to the
seconds
lab.
behind. You guys are...
I'll let Dr.
What did we
Birx
figure
talk
out?
more
Does
about
anybody
the
remember
machines
how
here in a
many
second.
seconds you guys
But
are
as
behind?
As you'll see, across
Me?
the United States, we have a tremendous number. They range in variety. So we have some very small machines that do point-of-care testing. They may
22
do,
seconds?
say 50 to 100 tests a day. We also have other very large machines that can do several thousand, process several thousand tests a day. On the collection supply piece, I'll
There we
talk
go.
through a couple different kinds of collection that can be done. So for the nucleic acid test, which are the tests that are currently being done today, you generally need a swab of the nose. To do that, you need the swab, you need the collection tube, and you
22.
also need the
I think Kim is
transport
right. I
media
think
that
it's-
it can be transported.
I'm 10 seconds behind.
We
You guys are
have a
22
very large
seconds
number
behind that.
of
So you guys are
swabs
about
already in the
32
country,
seconds behind
but we have
the
secured
C-SPAN
an
feed.
additional 30 million in production that will be ramping up over the next several weeks.
And Trump's about 60 years
one
behind
company,
reality.
Located in the Northeast, we're going to be using Title III of the DPA to help them build 4 new production lines. They are currently the largest swab producer in the country, and this will help them ramp up their production tremendously to over 20 million additional swabs a month. A second company located in Ohio is currently the largest Q-tip
Weren't you guys
maker
playing
in
as
the
a
country.
a swab
We're helping them
drinking
convert
game
their line
yesterday?
from making
You guys would be
Q-tips,
hammered
into
already.
making
This is
swabs.
all about
They're
swabs.
actually ramping up production starting
Swabs?
this week of swabs, and we'll be ramping up to over 10 million production, 10 million per month.
I'm getting
so
a bottle.
In total, that's over 30 million new swabs that will be coming just over the next handful of weeks. The second piece is on the collection tubes. The collection tubes, we've been partnering with Oak Ridge National Lab, a Department of Energy lab based in Tennessee. They have very unique and sophisticated injection molding manufacturing capability, and they are in the process of ramping that up to create collection tubes, and they
All
will
right.
be ramping up to
Swab
over
talk.
40
Here we go.
million collection tubes a month here over the next several weeks. In addition to the swabs, we believe that as testing progresses, there'll be
Swabs!
other types of testing like serological testing that will occur. And those samples have to be collected in different ways. So many times, some of those tests will require a finger prick. So in addition, we've secured over 17 million lancets, which is what you use for the finger prick, so that we have those available, as well as 17 million alcohol swabs, which is what you need to clean the finger before you do the finger
Swabs!
In addition, although folks are not talking about this much yet, we also believe that businesses across the country may want thermometers to test folks as they come into the office. And so we've secured over 650,000 infrared thermometers
Trump will be back, Larry.
that states and businesses will be able to access to be able to test folks as they
I
come
made my
into
own
work.
swabs, Dee
So I
Dee.
think we've made tremendous progress on
All
the
you need is a
collection
little
side.
bit of Scotch
In
tape.
addition to the collection
That's why it's
side,
called
we've been
magic
very
tape.
focused on ensuring that the labs have what they need. To process a specimen in a lab, you really need 2 things.
God, I
You
wish
need
I had some
something
spam
called
right
an
now,
extraction
Kim.
Kit, and you need something called a PCR test. In order to be able to fully process a test, you need both of these things. Sometimes these things come together, and sometimes they come separate. For some of our point-of-care tests, including the Abbott and Cepheid tests, they come together.
When he said come together, you
They
saw
are
Trump
ramping up
giggle in the
production
background.
rapidly to over 3 million of those tests per
That
month,
never
and these are
happens.
tests
That's a
that did not
myth.
exist even a month ago. The second piece is on some of these large machines. They also sell complex cartridges that come together. One of the big manufacturers is that.
Yeah, they're out of both
already ramped
swabs
up
and
production
reagents.
From about 1.6 million a month to more than twice that already, and that's already occurred.
Hold on.
In addition to when they come together, they also sometimes come separate, and we see significant ramping up of production there from our manufacturers through our public-private partnerships, and we're seeing both several million more over the next few weeks of both the RNA extraction kit as well as the PCR test kit. So with that, thank you.
Mike, please. Thank you, Brett.
Oh, wait.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I share your admiration for this remarkable team, from the Army Corps of Engineers.
What about his leadership?
To Brad.
Mention his leadership, Michael.
Job, every day. As President mentioned,
And you think?
Today we had our weekly conference call with governors across the country, states and territories, and I was able to convey to them our appreciation for the leadership that every governor of every state and territory has provided. Thanks to their leadership, thanks to the extraordinary cooperation of the American people, despite the fact that more than 770,000 Americans have contracted the coronavirus, and our hearts grieve for the more than 41,000 Americans who've lost their life. The truth is that as we stand here today, we are slowing the spread. As the President reflected, we continue to see...
I'm just going to try something. Did anybody notice that I've muted Mike Pence? Anybody? Hold on. Listen.
Preserving our healthcare capacity as...
You see the difference? Is there any difference? Can you let me know if anybody
We've
hears?
built a great number of hospitals around the country, but the utilization rate has been fairly low because of the mitigation efforts, the cooperation of the American people. We have
And the
not
leadership.
had to use them.
And his
and that, as the
graceful
President said, is
leadership.
very good news. In a word, we thank governors across
Yeah.
the country for taking actions, decisive action, to save lives and to make a difference. I reminded them that we're all in this together. We have one mission. We're one team.
All in
We spoke on the
this
conference
together.
call about last week's guidelines
High School
to
Musical?
open up America again. And we heard from
I used to
governors
have
across the
preteens.
country about the progress that they are making. We spoke to governors from New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida, Louisiana, Texas,
10
and
points to
Michigan
whoever
about their
can tell me
ongoing
where that
efforts
song
at
is from.
social distancing, and addressed questions that they had about needs that have been spoken of already in this
No, I know there's a
today.
difference when I muted
In addition,
him.
as we
It
promised
was a
last
joke.
week when we spoke
It's
to
like if you
governors
mute
on
Mike Pence, does it
Thursday
make
about the
any
guidelines
difference to
open
the
up
world
America,
at all?
our team presented
Except for Trump.
Every governor in the country, states and territories, with a memorandum detailing laboratory capacity in all locations of laboratory.
Oh, Brian, you're playing the drinking game, but with
equipment
Prick?
for diagnostic tests. that
You'll
can
see the Prick in
perform the
just a moment.
coronavirus test. We
He'll be
also
answering
provided,
questions
as
for
Dr.
like
Burks
45
will,
minutes.
We'll elaborate in just a few moments. Literally a map about where these
Dr. Scarf
these
is gonna
testing
talk.
devices are located, and I must tell you, Mr. President, I was very impressed at the way governors, as we speak, are scaling testing in their own states using these resources. Our hope is that by providing this information, and by our team that we've enlisted out of Walter
Cheers.
Reed, that's contacting every one of the laboratories in the country to find out what their needs are
Hey, Todd.
and to encourage
Hey,
them
Rich.
to activate those testing machines to do coronavirus testing that will continue to be able to support.
I know, Chris. I
state
think Pence is going to be
managed
off the
effort
ticket here if he
increase
doesn't
testing
start
even
praising.
more. But a few highlights. Governor Doug Ducey announced antibody testing for 250,000
Ducey.
health professionals this week and first responders, a partnership between the state and the University of Arizona. We spoke today about Governor Gavin Newsom's announcement that he set up a task force
Woo,
for testing
Newsom.
5 to 7 high-capacity testing hubs in partnership with UC San Diego and UC Davis to increase testing in high-capacity labs around the state of California. We heard from Governor Ron DeSantis, Mr. President, about the efforts of the state of Florida. I believe he said that at this time Florida had conducted 275,000 coronavirus tests, and they're in the process of a major expansion of statewide testing with the goal of opening up additional sites and using the Florida National Guard to test
And really
residents at
allowing the
nursing
virus
homes
to
and
flourish.
long-term care facilities in Florida. We also recommended today to every governor's attention the public health website that the state of Florida established, which has useful information on a county-by-county level about where testing is happening.
It actually, the Florida website is really
governors are
good.
utilizing testing assets. They're managing and deploying these resources as they see fit. And at your direction, we're going to continue to work very closely with
Meanwhile,
them.
they had 744 new cases
spoke
today.
With included Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan.
But let's open that puppy up.
There are
What was
13 new
that?
Expanded coronavirus.
The cameraman just zoomed in on
Michigan.
Trump.
Her team has stood up with Michigan Primary
Doing
Care
his jilted
Association.
admiral.
And we,
This is a little
we assured
Napoleonic.
her that we would continue to work as Brad and Admiral Giroir are literally working around the clock to make sure that they have the supplies to support all of that testing. As the President said, Governor Hogan, who always begins our conference calls as he's chairman of the National Governors Association, expressed appreciation for last week's guidelines to open America up again. And his appreciation on behalf of all the governors for the list of laboratories in each individual state.
God, I almost feel like going back because I just caught the end of that Trump
Zoom.
Zoom.
On the list,
I almost feel like going back and
Department of
seeing what the
Defense
hell was going on
facilities
there.
that have laboratories and machines, and also other federal facilities, many of which are in Maryland. And I was able to assure
he rocks himself.
Governor
You ever
Hogan
notice
and
that?
every governor on the call that we will make
Nobody
all
ever rocked
of
him as
those
a kid.
laboratories available
So he just sits there
across the
rocking
country
himself.
to
And
every state
he's
as
never
the need
figured
for
out how to
testing
fold his
capacity
arms.
continues
The
to
basic
scale.
ergonomic
And so
function
this is
of
one
the
more
arms
step where
supporting
you see the Army
themselves.
Corps of Engineers,
So
where we
he
literally
folds
see
them like this.
thousands of
He hugs
military
himself.
doctors
And he just
and
rocks
nurses on the
himself as he
streets of
hugs.
New York and other cities around the country. This is one more
And
step
when he gets
where
really
we
upset, you
literally,
see him at
as
his
the
desk
President
just-
said from early on, are leaving no stone unturned, and we are delivering a whole of government approach for our states as they deal with the coronavirus outbreak. Governors are continuing to expand testing, and we assured them that we're going to continue.
I
to
do
work in
miss
every
the
way to
helicopter
support their
moments because
efforts
some
to
of the
do
best
just
stuff
that.
came out of that.
I will say again, as we've said before.
Are there swabs? Has Pence
as
said
Dr.
swabs?
Birx
Because I'm
comes
getting
up
thirsty again.
To explain to you what
Pass
we
the
delivered to
doochie
the
down the
governors
left
today.
hand.
We told the governors once again today that by our best estimates, we have enough testing capacity today.
Oh, he was
every
doing the
state
gorilla.
in America to go
Trump was just
to
doing the hands
phase
down
one,
swivel.
if they meet the other criteria of 14 days of reduced cases and sufficient hospital
There he is.
capacity to prepare for any eventuality that may occur. Once again, we have enough testing capacity for every state in America to go to phase one, but we assured the governors today that we're going to continue to work around the clock to expand the testing capacity, support supplies, and to support their efforts to encourage social distancing and the very mitigation efforts that the American people have been doing that have brought us the progress that we see all across the country today. With that, Mr. President, I'll just let Dr. Birx describe what we distributed today.
Thank you, Mike. Deborah?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr.
Oh,
President.
tell us the story of that
Just want
scarf.
to show you a
Please
couple
tell
of
us the
additional
story.
slides, but also to remind all of
Oh,
Americans
slides coming.
that we still have a significant number of cases, both in the Boston area and across Massachusetts and Chicago, that our hearts go out to those cities as they continue to struggle with coronavirus and the consequences at the
Look at Trump looking
hospitalizations
concerned.
and all the healthcare providers that are
It's
on
really
the front line.
concentrating on those
We
slides.
wanted, so these are just an illustration of the different types of equipment that are out there, describing them both as low speed, but quick turnaround time, to high speed and taking 3 to 4 hours to actually run 100 or more tests. And so the
I'ma go
equipment
away.
range
There you
from
go.
all those different, and that's why there's 5,000 of them as noted by the president in this list. We wanted every governor and every state and health laboratory director to have a clear understanding of the full capacity within the state, both for the capacity, but also where technical assistance and additional supplies may be available. And we were proud to put the federal labs on that list because the military and the VA have stepped up every step of the way to provide support both in testing and care. And we have many military members on the front lines, and I'm sure the military would offer their facilities to the governor of Maryland or any governor who wanted to utilize those to expand testing. So next slide, I'm just going to run through them very quickly. So every
Fauci's
governor
on
not
TV
only
somewhere.
received the Excel spreadsheet with the complete list of the
Fauci
equipment
triplets.
and
Okay.
the zip code of the location
I'll
and the
fix it.
laboratory to really be able to create a mosaic of laboratories.
Yeah, this is the
of
Florida
high
site. This is pretty
speed
cool.
and low speed equipment together to meet the needs of their clients, depending if they're drive-through or hospital needs. So this is what Florida looks like. Next slide. This is what Louisiana looks like. Next slide. Maryland with significant capacity. Next slide. Virginia with significant capacity throughout the state. Next slide. New York, obviously a lot of capacity in New York City with overlapping capacity. It's important to know where this is because then hospitals
those dark blue dots are the
support
ones to look
each
at.
other
Those are the
when they need
15-minute
surge
tests.
capacity.
That's what
Next
we
slide.
need.
This is New Jersey.
So if we want
Next
to open
slide.
up the country and have people go to
Pennsylvania.
work and work
Next
in
slide.
restaurants or wherever next to each
Massachusetts.
other,
Next slide. Ohio.
those blue
Next
dots
slide.
need to be everywhere.
Oklahoma. Next slide. Washington. Next slide. I think that's Wyoming. So we wanted to
two
show
near
both
Seattle,
in
that's
states
it?
that have large populations and in states that have lower populations. You can see that
None
in general,
in Wyoming.
the number of machines match their population. And we're working with the Walter Reed Group and the American Society of Microbiologists and all the lab directors to really create a web of understanding of what the capacity is currently,
those
what
black
the
currants on her
capacity
scarf?
can be, and how
Pineapples
the
and
federal
black
government can
currants?
support them in developing their strategies linked to the overarching federal strategy of testing as outlined in our guidelines. Thank you, Mr. President.
Question for Dr. Birx? Yeah. Dr. Birx, University
question
of
for
Southern
Dr. Birx.
California and the LA County
Hey, John.
Public Health put out a report today that suggests that the penetrance of the virus is as much as almost 40 times what it was believed to be, that as many as 442,000 people in LA County may have been infected, which suggests two things.
Yes.
It suggests that you have a lot more people out there who could be spreading the virus, but it also suggests that the case fatality rate is more in line with the 2017-2018 flu than what we've seen in some other areas
I don't
of the
think
world.
that
I'm wondering if you've
they
seen
showed
that, what your
California,
thoughts are.
Rich.
So we're looking at all those studies very carefully, and I think you will remember over the last 3 weeks I've been talking about the level of asymptomatic spread and my concern about asymptomatic spread because with flu and other diseases, when people are sick, it's easy to contact trace. When people
Yeah,
are
I know
not
the
sick
50-minute test
and
can only
shedding
do one at a
virus, you have
time.
to have a
Sometimes
very
it's a
different
5-minute test if it's a
approach,
high
very
positive.
different sentinel
So that's a
surveillance
5-minute
approach, a
test.
sentinel
But
monitoring
it's a
approach,
way
which we
to find out if
outline
somebody
in the guidelines. And
within
it's
a
why
few
the
minutes
guidelines
is able
took
to
that
do what
very
you need them to
seriously.
do.
We knew that was unique
So
for
if we have a
respiratory
ton of
diseases,
those,
but it was because
we can
were
open
very
things back up
concerned
again.
about the
Otherwise,
level of asymptomatic.
right now,
And
I
if
just
you
had a friend
remember,
take the test and it was
talked
5
about
days.
Younger
This is in
age groups may
LA
have
County.
more asymptomatic disease, and your asymptomatic disease may decrease with your older age groups, and that your symptomatic disease might increase with age
When
groups.
she uses her
This
arms,
is
it
still
looks
our
like she's been
working
drinking.
hypothesis. We have no data right now still to support that, but it's these kinds of studies that help that. We know that New York and Detroit and other cities are very interested, which we want to also support them in testing for frontline responders, first responders, and healthcare workers, because we think their exposure may have been the greatest. What we don't want to do, and I'm just going to do another 30 seconds on testing. These tests are not 100% sensitive or specific. And I'm going to go over this over and over again. So if you have 1% of your population infected, and you have a test that's only 99% specific, that means that when you find a positive, 50% of the time it will be a real positive, and 50% of the time it won't be. And that's why we're really asking people to start testing in among the first responders and the healthcare workers that may have had the greatest exposure, because that's where the test will be most reliable. And then when we have the luxury, we can go out to broader and broader communities. But this has been the fundamental question to begin
So
with.
we don't
and
have
has
enough
been
tests for everyone
persistent,
right now? Is
and we
that
will
what she's saying? Because
emphasize
she
the
just
American
got done
people
telling
again,
us how
this is
many
a highly
available tests were out
contagious
there.
Virus.
The
And
capacity
we don't know by
for
looking
tests.
At someone, whether they have pre-existing
I'm
conditions
a
or
billionaire
not.
by
And so all
capacity.
of us, as far as protecting others, must continue to do all of the recommendations to ensure that when we are in an asymptomatic state, we're not passing the virus to others.
Question for you as well. The governor of South Carolina announced today they're going to open some
No, Larry,
stores with
I think the U.S.
restrictions,
probably
but they
has
just told my
close to
colleague,
30
Natasha
million
Chen, that
cases
they
by
have
now.
not achieved that criteria
So many
in
of
the
them
White
are turning
House
up
guidelines
asymptomatic,
about
and we're not
the downward
testing anything.
trajectory for 14
Oh,
days.
hold on, it's Caitlin.
So shouldn't they not be reopening stores today?
We have asked every governor
Yes.
to follow the guidelines, just as we've asked every American to follow the guidelines put out by the president. But each of the governors can decide for themselves whether they've reached specific guidelines in specific areas. I had a question, I think, on Saturday about Jacksonville. And their beaches. So I did spend about 5 hours going to every state website, and I will tell you that the Florida Department of Health website is extraordinary, and this is what every Department of Health should have, because when you go to that website,
it is an awesome website. I was on it yesterday. It's really cool.
In the Miami, Fort
but they
Lauderdale,
had
Broward
744 new cases today.
They had less
Yesterday,
than 20 cases
they had
per day, and less than 800 in 4 weeks. And so these are the kinds, when you inform the public.
Yesterday they had 822 new cases in Florida.
They can make decisions along
but
with
yeah,
the
if you do it county by county,
so I'm not
as long as people don't travel between counties, we're good.
I don't know their specific website right now, and I don't talk about data unless I've seen it myself. But I know from Jacksonville that they had less than 20 cases a day. And so this is how we need to start informing the community. These websites are critical. It's by zip code and it's by county. They can see cases, they can see cumulative cases, they can see new cases, they can see hospitalizations.
It's good because I never leave my zip code.
They can see age groups of mortality, and they can see where every testing piece is. This is how we have to inform the American public, and this is where the American public will develop confidence in each of their counties and local governments.
I was hoping you can comment. The Vice President mentioned that there's enough testing.
That's weird we don't have the luxury to test more people, because Trump is all about luxury.
Are there enough machines?
You know, Trump Airlines had shag carpeting.
For the sort of reopening the administration is envisioning taking place.
People never have sodas on planes
so
and experience turbulence.
Machine outline, and you can see that both of these.
That was just that. Seriously, Trump Airlines. He had them put shag gold carpeting on his airlines.
And preparing it now for what we will need in the future. And I think that's what you saw with the ventilators. That's what you're seeing with PPE. It's not just for today. It's for tomorrow. And it's our federal planning is not just for this instant. It's making sure that we meet the needs of this instance, but we're planning for 30 and 60 and 90 days ahead.
I would just agree with Dr. Birx completely. We are ready right now to enter phase 1, and we are ramping up all our capabilities across the board, not just to achieve what's necessary for phase 2, but 2x, 3x, 4x, so that we will be absolutely over-prepared when the nation is ready to go into those phases.
President Trump.
And by the way, not everybody agrees that we have to do that much testing. We're going maximum. You understand, there are some people that don't want to do that much testing. But we're going maximum. We're going to the outer limits. And I think that's the way probably it should be. Jeff, go ahead.
Mr. President, to return to
maximum,
the topic
so all of us?
Conference with on oil, U.S. crude futures today went below zero, went into negative territory.
Went negative.
Yeah.
Like interest rates, they go negative.
Does that make you want to see Saudi Arabia?
It's not how interest rates work.
OPEC Plus do more to
it's for
reduce
short
supply.
term. Much of it has to do with short sellers. Much of it has to do, if you look a month into the future, I think it's at $25 or $28 a barrel. So a lot of people got caught. They got caught, and there are a lot of people that are not too happy because they got caught. So if you take a look at it, you'll see it's more of a financial thing than an oil situation. But because you take, I believe, in a month or so, in other words, go a little bit out, it's at $25 and $28 a barrel. So it's largely a financial squeeze. And they did get squeezed.
Yeah, the stock market and futures are more of a financial situation.
Well, we've already done that, where Saudi Arabia's cutting back, Russia's cutting back, Mexico's cutting back, and the OPEC Plus.
There's no demand. There's zero demand for oil right now.
And, you know, the problem is nobody's driving.
Why is
he
surprised by any of
in
this?
the world, essentially, 184 nations.
Yes, right.
Factories are closed and businesses
185.
And
always gets that
so
number
all of a
wrong.
sudden,
Always gets
we
that
had
number wrong.
Really a lot of energy to start off with, oil in particular. Had a lot. And then all of a sudden they lost.
Oil is
50%
completely
of the
energy.
market, so it just stopped. So it's going to be picking up, and the energy business will be strong. But they cut back. It could be 20 million barrels, but it's, let's say, 15. And that was between Russia and Saudi Arabia. But this had to do with the squeeze, and it was a very tough squeeze. A lot of people got
more right now.
Well, they're going to do more by the market, to be honest. Look, same thing over here. If the market is the way it is, people are going to slow it down or they're going to stop. That's going to be automatic, and that's happening. Yeah.
Mr. President, on criminal justice reform and these SBA loans, I got an email earlier this morning from a fella in the Northwest who owns a supply business. And he has a felony on his record, nonviolent felony, in the past 5 years, which under SBA guidelines makes him ineligible for one of these PPP loans. So he has now had to let go 50 employees, many of whom are criminals trying to get back into society. I don't believe there's anything in the CARES Act that would restrict.
If you give me the name of the company and his name, I'll have that checked out, John. I'll do that. It's a friend of yours?
No, not a friend of mine. No, it's just somebody who.
No, all the employees work here at the White
You
House.
just say he's a criminal, and why did he get a loan? Or what's...
He says he wanted to apply for an SBA loan and couldn't, and wondered how that squared with
If you
your.
give me the name, I'll look into it. I'd like to look into that, okay? Caitlin, go ahead.
If these companies that open and they have employees come back to work and they get sick, will these companies be liable?
Which companies you
Yes,
talking about?
yes, they will, Caitlin.
Manufacturing, any kind of company that opens,
So
employees go back to
we
work,
have-
they get sick, will
I'll
the
give you an
company be
answer to that. I'll give you a legal answer to that when we look it up, but we are trying to take liability away from these companies. We just don't want that because we want the companies to open and to open.
You
some-
can't?
But I'll get you a legal opinion on that.
This is the
I'll get
United
you-
States?
That's what I'm saying. I'll get you a legal opinion on
You
that.
guys haven't discussed that yet?
Nobody's discussed it, no, but we will.
I'll find a lawyer who agrees
Have
with
any
me,
business
and then I'll tell
executives
you.
voiced concern to you about being liable
Not one,
potentially?
not one.
They didn't say
Not
that on
at
the
this
call
point,
last week?
but we're gonna look because they have talked about general liability. So I'll get you a specific answer from the lawyers, okay? Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Mr. President. I wanted to follow on oil.
So
when you
in
were
like
talking
a week, there's going to be this guy from the
you were talking about
Northwest
the PPP
with a felony,
deal and then mentioned the
and it'll be a
SBA
campaign
and
rally.
the first
Trump saved
stimulus
50
package,
employees.
Even though you had announced
Well,
that the
but you know the price of oil right now, don't you?
I do. Do you know the price
I
of oil?
do. I actually do.
It's negative $37.
So the chat that you see on your window there, oh, I'm going to be quiet. Hold on.
In your opening remarks, you were talking about the PPP deal, and then you mentioned the 75 million barrels of oil that you previously had said you wanted to purchase.
Yes.
You weren't able to get funding for that in the first deal. So I'm wondering, are you...
Well, with the price you're talking about, you don't need funding. They pay you, see? You know?
You can go get it
Because right
in the
now,
next
well, if you can
24
get it,
hours.
that's true, if you can get it.
So my first question is, are you asking for
Well,
that funding?
at a
as part of
minimum,
the
we'll let
PPP
people
deal?
store, so we'll store it, we'll use it as storage, and charge for it. But people need storage desperately, and we have massive storage under the petroleum.
So you're not going to make it a requirement of the PPP interim funding deal?
It's
that's
not a
going to
question of requirement. If we could buy it for nothing, we're gonna take everything we can get. The only thing I like better than that is where they pay you to take the oil. But that's a short-term squeeze, you understand that, so I don't think you're gonna see that. But no, we'd like to have Congress, this is a great time to buy oil, and we'd like to have Congress approve it so that we could, instead of just storing it for the usually the big companies, because I think we have 75 million gallons right now capacity. That's a lot. It's we've been building it up over a period of time, but that's a lot, 75 million barrels. So we're going to either ask for permission to buy it, or we'll store it. One way or the other, it will be full. Okay, please.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
Trump always makes deals for a specific number and then exaggerates that number, and everyone says it's going to be 50. I think it could be 70 or 100 or
right now.
for no reason.
Do that under Section 232. Is that something that you would
Well,
consider?
we'll look at it. I heard just as I'm walking into the room, we certainly
Yeah,
have
good
plenty
point,
of
Chris.
oil. So I'll take a look at that, okay? Yes, please.
Questions. First on testing, the second on the SBA loan program. When will you in fact invoke the DPA to force that company you mentioned to ramp up production of
Well, we really don't need it. We use it, we go up, and I've used it a lot. But we use it, and then sometimes all they have to do is see it coming. Do you want to talk about that, Admiral, please?
I think this is, I don't think any of us knew very much about the DPA, but there's sort of a force side of the DPA where you force a company to do something, but there's a second side of it which is really a hand up. The company we're talking about has done everything to support this effort and have ramped up production. I'm on the phone with them multiple times a day. This is the hand up. This is the government coming in and saying, how can we help you expand your lines? There's no asynchrony here at all. So this is the hand up side of the DPA, which is exactly what these small American heroic companies need. They don't need to be forced. They're all in. Their employees are all in.
So point of clarity.
And we don't want to embarrass people either. Please, Brett, go ahead.
So today we were
Embarrass
on
people by using the
folks
DPA?
on site with that company, finishing out what their capital projections will be in order to be able to ramp up these additional 4 lines that I spoke about. The company will then turn in a white paper to the DoD that will then help move the process forward, but it's actively in process.
Depending on where he lives,
Understand that the need
haircutters
is
may
enormous, but
be
on March 24th,
closed or open.
March 21st, the administration promised 27 million tests by the end of March. So far, roughly 4 million people have been tested. So where are the other 23 million or so tests? Do they not materialize? Are they in the pipeline? Help us understand that discrepancy.
So since I
Dr.
was
Scarf?
the one who said
He's the one who said it.
Let me explain
Yes.
where we were. So I was getting my information. It was correct information about the actual tests that are in the marketplace. So if you want to use those metrics, there's been over 40 million, quote, in the marketplace. But we have an end-to-end issue that we needed to deal with, and that's what we've been dealing with. The swabs, the transport media. If we don't have people utilizing the machines the way Dr. Birx is talking about, we have some of our main platforms that are only 10% being utilized. You could have a lot of tests in the market, and those are correct numbers. But if the machines aren't utilizing them and they're not organized at that level, then they're not being
23 and not me.
fullest.
So
And that,
you meant if the machines were utilized, that would be the
you would have a lot of those millions of tests already being done.
If you had the reagent and the swabs, here's the deal. By the end of the month, I'm going to pay you $1 million.
That could be done.
And at the end of that, I'm going to say, look, I was referring to how much money is in the marketplace in general.
And the Vice President has said this, Mr. Smith said it, that there will be enough tests in place for phase
Swabs.
one. There are. The question is, what's the standard of testing that you now have the capability for? Is it test people who are only very ill? Is it test people who have the sniffles? Is it test people who come in just because they want to get a test? I mean, what is the standard here for the
It is the guidelines, but I tried to be a little specific about this on Friday, and we all tried to. Number one is you need to test everyone who's symptomatic, right? And you need to over-test them because we're talking any symptoms that would be consistent with COVID, right? So, and there's a wide range of symptoms. You want to test them, and you want to over-test. And we talked about the approximate metric with Ambassador Birx fully supports, because this is a good metric that you want to get about 1 positive for every 10 tests. Then you oversample. Second, and this is a really important part of the strategy, is because so many people are asymptomatic.
Never mind.
There's no way that you can test enough people.
You're asymptomatic.
To pull one asymptomatic out of 300 people in the population. So the strategy with Ambassador Birx offered, and I talked to epidemiologists around the country, and they go, wow, I wish I would have thought of that, is to really focus on the vulnerable population where we know that the asymptomatic rate could be much higher than the rest of the population. And we are going to be focused, and this is what my office does, and during normal times, focusing on the underserved populations, particularly in inner cities and urban areas.
Again, translation, we don't have enough tests.
They're subject to a lot of comorbid conditions.
Now, get back to work.
We all know about nursing homes, and there's both symptomatic and asymptomatic spread. And finally, some of our indigenous populations in the Indian Health Service. So this is a very, very important layer that most of the models and people don't talk about, because that's where we're going to pick up the asymptomatic carriage. And when you do that, that's when you focus on track and trace.
So just a quick follow-up on that. If we have enough tests right now for everyone to go into phase one, why is the governor of Maryland having to get 500,000 tests from South Korea?
I don't know what the governor of Maryland is doing in South Korea, but there is excess capacity.
He got 500,000 tests
if he
at
wanted
reagent
to send 30 or 40,000 tests
from
to
South Korea.
Quest, that could be done. That could be done tomorrow.
It can't be done without the swabs and the reagent.
I think we're seeing all across the country that in the states that have been hardest hit, their capacity, not only their capacity, their testing far exceeds South Korea, and they've been able to do that on a relatively straightforward basis. I don't know what the governor of Maryland, we talked to him today, he didn't bring that up today. We were on the governor's call.
He probably didn't even need to order the test from. He's probably been tested multiple times.
We spoke to Governor Hogan today. I'll follow up because I heard there was an announcement today about that he had acquired some tests from overseas. Maybe we could put the slide back up that showed the number of facilities just in the state of Maryland. And part of our process, and I don't know when the governor placed the order from South Korea, wouldn't begrudge him or his health officials for ordering tests, but the capacity of all the different laboratories and the number of machines that are across Maryland is part of what we were communicating today, including federal facilities. NIH is in Maryland, there's Department of Defense facilities, and what we assured the governor then, and we assured all the governors, that we'll open up all of those facilities. But John, back to your point, there was one other element of that, that's the phase 1 testing, and I can't really describe it as well as the doctors here, but it's the contact tracing piece. We really believe that states that meet the criteria of 14 days of cases going down and proper hospital capacity, if they test people that have symptoms, and if they deploy resources
people
to
gonna
vulnerable
die.
populations,
A lot of
nursing
people
homes and
gonna
other
die.
designated vulnerable populations where we believe the threat of serious outcomes from the coronavirus is real, then we also today inform the governors that we will be deploying CDC teams to every state and every territory in the country to assist them in contact tracing. Governor Jared Polis raised a very good point about the legislation the president is currently negotiating on Capitol Hill. He recommended that we make sure that the new bill that has some $25 billion in testing resources also cover.
We were also promised Mexico would pay for the wall.
By states.
Welcome to Trump's
assure
America.
them our administration strongly supports that. We communicated that to the Secretary of the Treasury and the rest of our negotiation team, and we'll be pursuing that. But we were able to tell every one of the governors that we will be deploying teams, we think of 10 or 12 for a start, from CDC to reside in all of our states and territories to supervise and work with contractors and others to do the kind of contact tracing. So it's test people that don't feel well and may have the coronavirus, keep a careful eye and monitor your vulnerable populations. And when you come across a case,
can't stay awake when
have a
Pence is
team
talking.
on the ground that can do the immediate contact tracing and testing, and that's how we restrain and contain the spread of the coronavirus during phase 1. And frankly, it's the beginning of the structure for how we contain the coronavirus going forward.
And take a look at that map. The governor of Maryland could have called Mike Pence, could have saved a lot of money. Look at these different places. That's Maryland right there. So could have saved a lot of money, but that's okay.
Need to go to South Korea for
No,
this
I don't think he
testing
needed to go to
kits?
South Korea. I think he needed to get a little knowledge would have been helpful.
On the SBA loans, do you think it's right that major
Yeah.
corporations, major institutions like the Ruth's Chris restaurant chain like Harvard University apparently got a lot of money under the CARES Act, money that was supposed to be earmarked for small business owners? Do you think that's fair?
Well, I know one thing, I didn't get any. That's for sure. I didn't get any. We'll look at individual things.
What the?
Some people will have to return it if we think it's inappropriate.
But should the criteria be changed so that money...
I didn't get any money out of this
It's been
Corona
done by
thing.
Great professionals. It's
I
been
feel
done by
ripped off.
banks,
What about
and
me?
community banks
Me?
all over the country.
Me?
That's what they do. They loan money, and they're supposed to do it.
So
according
Trump
to
just went after Larry
not
Hogan,
only
who
criteria,
is
but
the governor
according to
of
what we think
Maryland,
is right.
a Republican.
But if somebody got something that we think is inappropriate, we'll get it back. Okay? Good point. Please go ahead.
Yes, a different question about South Korea. There are reports that you are personally negotiating with President Moon the terms of reduction of U.S. forces on the Korean Peninsula, and that there are 4 scenarios involved. Can you confirm that? And if so, what is your desired
Peninsula.
outcome?
Well, I think that South
I
Korea
love
had
this
a great
accent.
talk with President Moon. He's a friend of mine. I congratulate him. He had a wonderful election victory.
Oh,
I'm
he's a
very
friend.
happy about
It's a
that. He
wonderful
was,
relationship. So
as you know, just recently. We are negotiating for President Moon and for South Korea to help us monetarily, because we, as you know, we have 32,000 soldiers there. That varies from 28 to 32,000 in South Korea. And we think that before I came aboard, they paid very little, if anything. So we're defending a
no, they
wonderful
they
nation,
were
a
paying,
nation that we have great
and
relationships
they had
with.
already
We're
agreed to
asking
pay
them to
more.
pay for a big
They
percentage
are on a
of
scheduled
what
payment
we're doing.
increase,
It's not
South
fair.
Korea,
So,
and we
it's
want
not
the
a question
soldiers
of
there
reduction,
because
it's a
our
question
enemy
of,
is North Korea.
will they,
Although he's a very good friend with
contribute
Trump
toward
now,
the defense of their own
so
nation?
you know all those
We're
ballistic
defending
missile
nations that are
tests
very
and
wealthy.
nuclear
South Korea is a very wealthy
bomb
nation. They
tests.
make our television sets, they make ships, they make everything, and I give them great credit. We've been defending them for many, many decades, as you know, many, over 8 decades. And I've gone to them in the past. Last year I went to them, and now they're paying $1 billion a year. And I went to them again. I said, look, I'll be back because that's just a fraction. And again, the relationship is great, but it's just not a fair relationship. We renegotiated the trade deal and made it a much more equitable deal than it was in the past. It was a terrible deal. It was done by Hillary Clinton. It was a terrible deal. The new deal is a much more equitable deal. That's on trade. But on the military, I mean, we're paying for the military to defend another nation that's 8,500 miles away.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton negotiated the KORUS free trade agreement with South Korea, which
names, but I've done this. Nobody talks
increased
about
trade
it,
and profit for America tremendously.
Our country, taxpayers want to hear these things. And so now they've offered us a certain amount of money, and I've rejected it. I just said, it's just, look, you know, we're doing a tremendous service. We have a wonderful feeling and a wonderful relationship with each other, but we have to be treated equitably and fairly.
It's wonderful feeling and relationship with each other.
What's going to happen, I can't tell you.
Who the
but we'll
fuck
find out
cares?
very soon. But I congratulate the president, who's a friend of mine. I congratulate President Moon on having
he's a friend.
A terrific
That's
victory.
4 times now he said that Moon is a friend.
Question for you about Governor Cuomo's
The moon
visit
is my
and also
only
a question
friend.
for Dr. Birx
I look
this
out my
morning.
window at night.
The New York governor, along with the National Governors Association, in the past have called for aid to be unrestricted. As a lot of state and local governments see their revenues drop, are you open to the idea of unrestricted aid, or do you want it to be pandemic specific?
Well, we're going to be talking about that in Phase 4, as you know, which will start very shortly. That has to do with infrastructure, hopefully infrastructure, because this country needs infrastructure. We spend all this money in the Middle East, $8 trillion. $8 trillion with a T dollars in the Middle East. But if you have a pothole in a highway someplace, they don't want you to spend the money.
I wonder
to
what
fix
that
it.
number
How
actually is.
stupid have
Hold
we
on.
been in this country? How stupid have we been? And
well, we
that's
elected
changing
you
rapidly. You know that, you've seen that, including things like negotiating with friends. But when we are helping friends, friends should reimburse us for the cost. I mean, why should we be defending nations for free? We're defending a nation for free.
David
Now
Mickelson,
I'm
are you
getting
watching?
$1
Can you
billion
get us a
year,
number on
and
how much
we're-
we've spent in the
we'll be
Middle
getting-
East?
We were offered much more than that, but I turned it down. So that's where we are with that. As far as
6.4
the
trillion.
is concerned, look, we have to be smart in this country. We've been taken to the cleaner by every, and I mean with allies, not just with the enemies, with allies. We've been, frankly, the
I thought you
allies
meant
have
with you.
taken us much more so than the
By
enemies. The
allies, do you
enemies we
mean
don't
your
do
family?
business with, right? The allies we do business with. And whoever made these deals,
No, we do
whoever
business
made
with the
these
enemies, too.
contracts, in many cases, we didn't have a contract. Like
This is
we
America.
didn't have a contract. We didn't have a trade deal with China. They came in and they took $500 billion a year.
No,
for
we
many
didn't have a
years,
trade deal
anywhere
with
from
them because we
200
didn't
to
need one.
$550 billion a year out of our hides. Now we made this great trade deal. Unfortunately, that was a
Not
number
true.
of months ago. And it's a great deal. They're paying 25% on $250 billion.
Trade deal hasn't been made.
A lot of things are happening.
They're paying nothing.
$250 billion.
That
worth
China
of
does not
goods,
pay the
including
tariffs.
Farm product up to $50 billion. So a lot of good things are happening. But then what happened with China was the plague hit us, right? The plague. That was after. This was long after we
What
signed
happened
the
with
deal.
China is the plague hit us.
So I'm not happy about that. Okay, John, please.
Oh, he's not happy about the plague. Okay. I can't criticize that. Okay, question for Dr. Scarf.
On the virus
Bring it,
itself, as
John.
it passes from patient to patient and mutates, over time, have you picked up any indication that it has become less virulent? Have you picked up any indication it has become more virulent?
You know, that is an excellent question because we watch that all the
It
time.
is, but we don't
particularly
know.
with RNA viruses to really track its adaptation to humans. I mean, you're really asking, has this virus become more adapted to humans and more able to spread, or is it becoming less adapted to humans and less able to spread? We don't have any indication that it's less able to spread, and we'll have good analyses
We're all
that
gonna
will
die.
come from Obviously, the
I mean, we will,
Roosevelt
at some point.
had its incident with a virus outside of the United States, and we'll be able to look at those parameters. And the DoD and the military has done a great job in really
It's surfaces.
ensuring the
It's
health
anyone
of the
who
sailors,
shares
but also
surfaces.
ensuring that this
Meat packing
these
plants,
questions can really be asked and answered. We have extraordinary
vessels.
evolutionary molecular biologists in this country, all around the
Bye, Dee.
United States, and they're looking at this very question. And a lot of the work that we've been doing, and you'll see a lot of work happening with testing in New Mexico and testing in other states. They have extraordinary molecular biologists that are evolutionary biologists, and they'll be able to look at that both in New Mexico, that may have lower transmission rates, and compare that to New York that has maybe 10x the transmission. But it's an excellent question, and it's something that will be able to be answered by what we see in the United States.
John, what a good question that was.
That's insane. That's almost measles number.
No, that's very impressive. You know, when Senator Schumer wrote a letter a couple of months ago, and he said, you should use admirals and generals. I said, well, that's where first of all, we have, our vice president has been incredible, but we have the admirals, we have the generals. And I was just talking to the admiral inside just before we came out. I said, did you go to Annapolis?
It's just shocking.
He said, no, sir. I said,
I don't know,
that's
Kim. I
too
haven't
bad.
seen CBS yet.
That's too bad. Where did you go?
They
He said, "I
take
went to
turns
Harvard."
because
Oh,
of the limiting.
It's okay too, I guess, right?
Because of social
So,
distancing.
you went to Harvard, and he was a great student at Harvard, and he's doing a fantastic job. And this young gentleman was very, very successful. But he wanted to help the country. He wanted to come into the country, and we appreciate it very much. It was a big success, big success. Let's do here and there next, okay? We're all set. Good.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was hoping you talked about your meeting tomorrow with Governor Cuomo that you mentioned. Is there a reason he's coming all the way down here?
I don't know. He wanted to, and
That sort of travel
we, believe it
schedule?
or not, we get along. Okay? He was very generous yesterday in particular. Said we did a, quote, phenomenal deal. I don't know if anybody wrote that, but he said that, and I appreciated it because it's not about me. It's about these people and thousands.
If you missed yesterday,
Mike and
he wanted to play the part of the video where Cuomo complimented Trump, so they played a video,
when I see,
but it didn't include that part, so he made them play it later in the rally.
I mean, this group should get a 95. It really should. And we're really helping the governors a lot. And the governors call me, the ones I know, or the Republicans.
Because they know if they
but the ones
compliment
I
you,
know,
they'll get
say
what they
it's
need.
Incredible the job you're doing. Again, not me. The job this group is doing.
Not Larry Hogan today.
And you sit here, and I'm watching from
By the way,
corner,
Larry
and I'm
Hogan's
just
wife,
saying, boy,
South
it's
Korean.
Incredible stuff. When you watch the general get up, General Semonite, and talk about boom, 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 you don't see that.
Boom,
You don't
boom,
see that.
boom.
When you hear the admiral speak about the testing, how good it is, and yet people don't like to say it. But remember, it was all about ventilators a month ago. Ventilators. Then we fixed it. You don't hear about ventilators.
People don't like to
Where's
say the
ventilators?
testing's
Jeff,
good,
you
'cause
haven't
it's
asked about
not.
Ventilators recently. What's going on? What about ventilators? We're helping other countries now because they can't have. They're very hard to come by, and they take a long time to make, like years. It's incredible the job they've done, that our people have done, and also private
Years,
companies
but
have
somehow
done.
he's
You
been
talk
bragging
about
about being the
act.
ventilator king and making a bunch of them in a
We don't like
month.
to use it unless we have to, but a lot of times just the fact that you have it gets you everything you need. So, we don't want to embarrass any of the companies, but we have used it on a number of occasions, and it worked, but it works just as well before you have to use it, because they don't want to be embarrassed, and I don't want to embarrass them because they've done a great job. Well, please, go ahead.
Mr. President.
No,
Is that
I think
OAN?
right behind you, I promised. I cannot tell a lie, so we'll get you next, okay? We'll get you next.
Talking to her or me?
No, you.
Me, okay.
Somebody capture
Well,
that.
thank you so
I
much.
cannot tell a lie.
My question, I have two questions. The first one is on testing. You talked about the idea that first it was ventilators, now it's testing. You seem to maybe possibly be implying that
PBS.
talking about testing is a personal attack on you. Can you explain why you think talking about testing is a personal attack, given that the access to testing has been an issue for a long time? There's bipartisan outcry still today that there's not enough testing. Why do you think it's a personal attack on you?
Well, it's not bipartisan, it's mostly partisan, but more importantly than mostly partisan, it's incorrect. You have the experts. Look at these maps. I mean, you have the maps with so many different locations. In the case of, as an example, Governor Hogan, he didn't really know.
He
really-
can't
it was very
comprehend
obvious to any of
things.
those listening on the call today, even though you weren't supposed to be on it. I'm sure that some of you were, or representatives were. He really didn't know about the federal laboratories. Would you say that's correct, Mike? He didn't know. He didn't know. And Mike doesn't like to get into this stuff. He's less controversial than I am, but he didn't know about it.
Mike doesn't like to
bet
about it.
He would have been happy. No, we've done a really good job in testing. Now, with that being said, we have tests coming out perhaps over the next 2 weeks that will blow the whole industry away. Now, a lot of people love the Abbott test. So do I. You know,
Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm still here. Hold on, everybody. Sorry. Panic. Come on. What happened? Why? Why you gotta be like this, C-SPAN? C-SPAN just got bored of Trump. Coming back.
Tremendous testing. Tremendous testing capability. Remember this. We've tested more than any country in the world by far. In fact, I think I read where if you add up every other country in the world, we've tested more. But remember this, we're dealing in politics. We're dealing with a thing called November 3rd of this year. Do you know what November 3rd represents, right? You know better than anybody in the room. November 3rd of this year, it's called the presidential election. No matter what I do, no matter where we go, no matter how well we do, no matter what, if I came up with a
I will
tablet,
always love you.
You take it, and this plague is gone. They'll say Trump did a terrible job, terrible, because that's their soundbite.
No.
That's the political soundbite. They know the great job
We have
done.
so many other reasons to
But
tell
with
you
all
that
of
Trump did a terrible
being
job.
said, and also, there is a thing that somebody could talk to if they want, but I don't want to bore you with it. Not everybody believes we should do so much testing. You don't
I'll
need
tell you
so
exactly
much.
how many.
We're talking about maximum. The reason that the Democrats and some others, maybe because they don't know, they want maximum because they want to be able to criticize. Because it's almost impossible to get to the maximum number, and yet we've been able to do it already. But with that, and you'll be seeing this over the next, I think, over the next couple of weeks or so.
We've gotten to the maximum testing number already.
If it comes out, it'll revolutionize
he doesn't know what maximum
the whole world
means.
of testing. It'll be something really special. So I don't view it as personal at all. What I do say is it's
revolutionize the
something
world of
that's not fair
testing.
to thousands of people that have done such a good job.
Your language.
So there's a new test coming that's going to be so revolutionary that it's unfair to the people who've been doing their job.
His family got sick. They went to a funeral in mid-March. And they said mainly because the president wasn't taking it seriously. He said, if the president had a mask on, if he was saying we should stay home, then I would have stayed home.
Well,
Instead, I have family members. He said his family members were sick, and because they were listening to you. Do you feel like, or are you concerned that downplaying the virus maybe got some people sick?
And a lot of people love Trump, right? A lot of people love me. You see him all the time, right? I guess I'm here for a reason, you know? To the best of my knowledge, I won.
Okay, but do you want to answer the question at all?
We're going to win in a landslide. But just so you understand, you're talking about March, right? Yeah. And yet, excuse me, I know, I understand. And yet in January, a certain date, you know the date better than I do, we put on a ban of China where China can't come in. And before March,
it wasn't in January. It's February 2nd at 5 p.m. I know that better than you do.
So how could you say I wasn't taking it seriously? You know, I put on a ban on China before anybody in this country died. I put on a ban. And so you tell me Nancy
never put a ban on
Pelosi
China.
She wanted to have a street party in Chinatown in San Francisco.
In Chinatown.
At the end of February. That's a month later. And then they tell me
you were
it's
doing
only
rallies
a
and
political
golfing.
talking point, but you feed into it because you're too good a reporter to let that happen. Really, you are a good reporter. You're too good a reporter to let that happen. Remember this.
No, he's
at the end of
complimenting her.
January, I put on a ban. People that were in that room will tell you that I think there were 21 people. I was.
Why does it say you didn't put on a ban? There were 11 loopholes.
Purpose. We put on a ban.
And trade didn't count. So business people could come through. So 40,000 people have come through.
But I was reading it with or without them. They should have known. All they had to do was
and guess
read
what?
It. They didn't have to even be there.
This is how well the ban worked. 789,000 cases.
But no, wait. But you can't.
That's
say
tested
that.
cases. I know. That's with maximum
In other words,
testing.
I stopped China from coming to the United
No.
States. I stopped Europe from coming
didn't.
into the United States long before the March
He
date
did not.
that you're talking about. So people should say I acted very early. That was a very hard thing to do. Doing that was a very hard thing. I didn't want to do that, but I did it because I thought, and
He had to
Dr.
read
Fauci said that by doing it, President Trump saved tens of thousands of lives. So I did take it very seriously.
Rallies in February and in March, and there are some Americans.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about rallies. I really don't know about rallies. I know one thing.
In February.
I haven't left the White House in months, except for a brief moment to.
He doesn't know about rallies? He did, what, 9 rallies?
Rally in March.
Somebody check that.
No. Did I hold a rally? I'm sorry, I hold a rally. Did I hold a rally? Let me tell you, in January, when I did this.
In February and March.
Virtually no cases and no deaths, and yet I put it on. So how could I not? Why was Nancy Pelosi, right?
This is like saying, we've only got 2 rabbits. We don't have to buy any more rabbit
She
food.
wants a street fair in San Francisco in Chinatown to prove, you know what the purpose of it was? To prove that there's no problem. Many other politicians did the same thing and wanted to prove. While I was, no, of course not. No. I've been, people are amazed at how early I acted. And I did act early.
Nope,
With
nobody
that
is.
being said, it's
Nobody
very
is.
hard to say, let's close down the greatest economy in the history of the world. I had it closed down.
You didn't close anything down.
I and everybody
You didn't close
else
anything
that
down.
works with me and 300 and close to 350 million people.
The governors are the only people who closed anything down.
Best employment numbers, best stock market numbers.
Nope.
Best numbers in virtually every category, even good manufacturing
GDP
numbers.
was 2.1%, which is pathetic. He said it was going to be 6.
Even great manufacturing numbers. And you know what? I did that, and somebody walked into my office and said, "Sir, you're going to have to close down the economy. You're going to have to close the country." But you know what I say to you? We're going to rebuild it, and we're going to rebuild it better,
He said
and it's
no.
going to go faster than people think. I built it once. I'll build it a second time. Please.
Mr. President, thank you. Michelle Rihanna from America.
Please.
He built it. He built the economy.
Going back to the topic of friendship and bipartisanship,
OAN.
Americans, with the exception of Pelosi, Schumer, and even Romney, Americans have seen an unprecedented chapter of bipartisanship and cooperation on the political landscape. On a personal note, what has been the most significant signal that your relationship with Democrats below the leadership level have changed for the good of America?
I think it's a great question because there is bipartisanship. Look, we're getting the.
Tell us about your friends in the
paycheck
Democratic
plan.
Party.
It's already $350 billion was approved, essentially unanimously, and we have another 250, which I think you're going to find out is going to be a higher number than that. Okay, I won't say it now because I don't know if they've released it or not. But
Okay, the reason OAN is standing in the back there is because they wouldn't obey the social distancing rules. So the White House Press Association, all the other companies working there, they kicked them out.
So I think the fact
And
that we're
then the
able
White
to
House
do
said,
all
no,
of
come
this
on
in a
back anyway.
bipartisan way
So
is
that's why
great.
they
Now, the
stand in the
tax
very
cuts
back
that the
there.
Republicans
It's not
did,
their
they
turn
had
to
no
be
help
there,
from
but
the
they're like,
Democrats.
fuck it, we're going
So you
anyway.
can't say that's bipartisan. But this whole thing, getting our country back, and, you know, Nancy Pelosi's been, she's very nasty. She, you know, wasted a lot of time on a impeachment hoax. It was a total hoax, went nowhere. And that was not good.
You got impeached.
And Schumer, I guess it's the same thing, but he sort of
It's
accepted
not
it.
good.
He just did what he was supposed to do, and he didn't do very well with it. But, you know, that was not appropriate. That was a bad thing for our country. But it was fine. I mean, I understand the game.
Always
Have a little
refers
bit
to
of a
our
majority,
country
so they
when he's
say,
talking about himself.
Let's do something and let's try and stir it up. But they wasted a year. They wasted tremendous. We could have been doing things that would have been great for our country. They could have been looking into China. They should have been looking into China as an example. A lot of people are blaming the Democrats for wasting all that time because it was during that period of time, as you know, that it was fomenting.
Because you're the one who
I think we've
deals
had a
with
great
international
spirit of
relations.
bipartisanship in a
You know,
certain way.
the executive
I wouldn't
branch.
say we're going to set records throughout the world, but things are happening that are very good. The country is coming together.
There's
And
records
I'll
for
tell you
personal
what, the people are
relationships with
coming together.
Democrats?
The people are really coming together. I think you're going to find that our country is much more unified. I do think that the press, the media, foments a lot of this, a lot of anger. I really
Sometimes
believe
he
it
says
foments
foments.
Tremendous anger. For
But
instance, I'll be asked.
he learned. Somebody
tremendously
corrected him.
hostile
Somebody told him what
question from somebody,
foments mean.
and then I'll answer it in a hostile way, which is appropriate. Otherwise, you look foolish. Otherwise, it looks like just walk off the stage and bow your head. I can't do that. You know, I just can't do that. But a lot of these questions that are asked from certain networks are so hostile, and there's no reason for it. There's no reason for it.
This is the longest answer
We
he's
are
given
in a
today,
war.
by the way.
This is a World War
And
II.
OAN,
This is
tell
a
us about
World
your
War
friends.
I, where, by the way, the war essentially ended because of a plague. That was one of the worst ever. They lost almost 100 million people. But we're in a big war. And I'll say one thing about, because I think it's important. The last person, I did it early, but I was the last person that wanted to close down one of the great economic, you can't call it an experiment, but everything, I guess, in life is an experiment. So I'd say experiment.
But that's the only word
One
I
of the
can
great
think of right now.
economic stories in history. I'm the last person that wanted to do it, but we did the right thing. Because if we didn't do it, you would have had 1 million people, 1.5 million people, maybe 2 million people dead. Now we're going toward 50, I'm hearing, or 60,000 people. One is too many. I always say it. One is too many. But we're going toward 50 or 60,000 people. That's
42,298.
As you know, the low number was supposed to be 100,000 people.
So
we could end up
success.
with 50 to 60. Okay, it's horrible. If we didn't do what we did, we would have had, I think, 1 million people, maybe 2 million people, maybe more than that. And you look at, there's one country in particular that decided, let's wing it, let's just keep going. They are being inundated with death. Now, if you take a look at some of the hospitals where one of them I knew
is he talking about
growing up
Sweden?
in Queens, and I'm looking at the bodies laying in hallways, being brought into refrigerated trucks, these massive trucks, bodies going in. Multiply that times 10. It's not sustainable. And many of the people that have this theory, oh, let's, maybe we could have just gone right through it. I was somebody.
No, we should have done what
that
South
would have
Korea
liked to
did
have
because
done
they've only
that.
had 236
But it wouldn't have been
deaths total.
Sustainable. You can't lose 1 million people. That's almost double what we lost in the Civil War. I use that as a guide. Civil War, 600,000 people died. So it's not.
His defense of
sustainable,
not
but it
doing
could have been
enough
much
is
more than 1
was
million people.
is I
mean, if
did
you took
something.
a number and cut it in half and half and in half again.
Everybody
you'd
else
end up
wanted
with
me to do nothing.
500,000 people. Okay, if you want to make a very conservative,
Which is still too much.
guesstimate,
Still too much.
500,000 people is not acceptable. Is that a correct sort of an analogy? So I mean, I see it all the
500,000
time.
people
By friends
is not
of
a
mine, by
conservative
people that I have
estimate
great
of 1
respect
million.
for. Well, we could have done this, we could have done, and remember this. When we say 50 and they compare 50 to the 35 of the flu, because it averaged 36,000 over a 10-year period, it's a lot.
When you
Who would
compare
think
it,
that?
when you compare
But
it,
we're not talking about with the flu. That's just, it just goes. We're not locking ourselves in our units. We're not locking ourselves in our apartments and not moving and not touching anybody. And
we're not getting
saying,
vaccines
the world,
and washing our hands.
in this case, we
and
are
developing
And we're still
treatments
gonna
for the
lose
flu.
between 50 and 60. But if we just kept it going on a normal basis, which is really the only standard that you can compare it to with the flu, because that was a normal basis. You get into an airplane, you travel to Florida, you go to Texas, you go wherever you're going. But in this case, if we didn't do anything, the number wouldn't be 50 to 60,000. The number would be 1 million people dead. It would be 1.5 million, 1.2 million, maybe 700,000.
Is he still answering the OAN question?
Because
I've totally lost
it's
track
so
here.
important because I see so much. Oh well, you can't compare it, because I'll tell you what, the people of this country, what they've done, they've gone.
No,
out of
you
it,
can't
what
compare
they- the way
reality
they
with
lived. It's
hypotheticals.
It's not great.
I mean, you
It's
can,
terrible.
but
But the first
but
3
that's what
days,
he's
and then
doing.
all of a
He's
sudden,
literally comparing
you
it.
see what's going on. They want to get going, and I get that fully. But I just say this: if we would have done that, we would have lost anywhere from 1 million to more than 2 million people.
Nobody asked
Now,
you
with
to
all
let.
of the death
What
that
did
we've
he say?
seen,
Ride it like a
50
cowboy.
or 60,000 people heading toward. Right
Nobody
now it's at
wanted that.
40.
Well, he suggested
But
it many
50 or
times, according to the
60,000
Washington
people,
Post and the
probably
New York
over
Times.
54, I see. But that's with our guard up. If we took our guard down and just said, okay, we're just going to keep this open, we would have lost
No, I think
millions of people.
wasn't it
Can you
Yamichi and then it
imagine?
was
Look how bad
OAN?
it looks now.
I don't know.
when
You could
look
be
at
right.
The bodies,
It feels like
when you look
18
at,
years ago.
Hart Island
The last
in New
question.
York, where they have the mass grave and all of the things that you see. Can you imagine if we had the guard down, if we didn't do anything and we just said, let's ride it out? It would not have
I
been
didn't do enough.
sustainable in any
Imagine
way.
if I didn't
It
do
would have been
anything.
an atrocity. So we've done the right thing.
Just like
We've really done the
you go to
right
McDonald's,
thing.
you order a Happy
And,
Meal. They give you some ice in a cup,
people
and
that
then say,
have
"Imagine how
worked so
hungry
hard
you'd
and
be if we
dangerously.
didn't make any food."
I'll tell you.
No,
again, I
you
say it,
can't
but
speak
I
to the
watch
manager.
Those doctors and nurses and medical people running into those hospitals, and they don't even have their gear on. Forget about gear, whether it's great gear or not, and we're bringing in the best gear in the world. But they're running in with open.
Yeah, because some of them don't have the gear.
I mean, the job. They're like warriors, the job they're doing. But if we didn't do the moves that we made, you would have had 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million people dead. So multiply that times 50. You're talking about you would have had 10 to 20 to 25 times more people dead than all of the people that we've been watching.
No,
That's
1 million
not
times
acceptable.
50 is, hold on,
The 50,000 is not acceptable. It's so horrible.
50 million.
But can you imagine multiplying that out by 20 or more?
Mm-hmm.
It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
So it's a very good question. I appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Can I ask you about Larry Hogan's response to what
Was
you
that
told me?
the OAN question he was answering?
President, a question about children.
That's it for the questions? That was, oh God, that was almost an hour and a half. Okay, well, hey, thanks everybody. I don't think I'm going to be broadcasting tomorrow. I'm going to stop this. There we go. I don't think I'm going to be broadcasting tomorrow. It's going to be about, if anyone wants to make a last comment here, I'll stay on for about a minute so I can respond to any questions. I'm not going to be around tomorrow. Oh, hey everybody, check it out. It's 420 on 420 on the 4th month of 20. So it's 420, 420, 420, everybody. Blaze on if your store is open. I actually did when we were practicing driving, because Kevin Lee Daughter's learning how to drive right now. We drove by a weed dispensary here in LA, and there was a lineup outside, like a social distance lineup of probably, how many people were at the weed place? I can't hear the answer. I'm guessing 30. Anyway, so people are out getting their... So it's 420, 420, 420. So smoke them if you got them. And if you don't, I think they're ordering them. And if only somebody said this earlier, I don't know whose comment I saw, but if weed dispensaries were responsible for the tests, we would be back to work. Well, I mean, we wouldn't... Some of us wouldn't be back to work because, you know, we'd all be enjoying our weed. Let me check the comments. Yeah, he knew he was in trouble after that question, so he bailed, probably. Rich, you're very welcome. Happy to do it. I'm going to be watching this nonsense anyway. Yeah, let's go. Actually, you know what? We can go back if anybody wants to hold on. I want to go see... I should be able to go back and see what that was all about. Let's see. So I can go to... I'm trying to figure out what that last question was, whether that was Yumichi or it was the Chanel, the OAN lady. Let's see. If we do this, we should be able to go back here and get rid of this asshole. Give me a second. Okay. I know everyone's got to get to work, so I don't want to take too long doing this. Hold on. And there we go. Let's go find the question. And come on. Go all the way here. Come on, C-SPAN, do it. Sometimes it takes a while to load back up again. Sometimes you get lucky. I could actually play our broadcast and find it, but I don't want to do that. Come on, Kevin. You're on the wrong screen. Sorry, I can't tell what screen my mouse is on sometimes. This is... I literally can't see my other screen. I'm at a table halfway across the room. Okay, let's just play and see what happens here. I'll give you guys the volume. This is the beginning here. Let me go back to that screen. Let me see if I can get forward. Oh, come on. It's not going to do it? I'm retired military.
I do. Do you know?
Okay, there. Wait, did he challenge Trump on the price of oil? Where is he?
A specific answer from the lawyers. Okay, go ahead, please.
Thanks, President. I wanted to follow on oil. When you were talking earlier, you were talking about the PPP deal and then mentioned the SPR.
Right.
In the first stimulus package, even though you had announced
Well,
that
but you know the price of oil right now, don't you?
I do. Do you know the price of oil?
I actually do.
It's negative
I actually
$37.
do. Of course, nobody's ever heard of negative oil before, but it's for a short term.
Okay. We actually did see that part. I'd forgotten. Come on. No, I don't know that we can go that far forward. Oh, hold on. I'm sure you've all logged out by now, but I'm kind of interested because I honestly, I can't even. Okay. Terrible deal. There's John.
It's not about.
Okay. A little bit forward. Is it going to let us? Oh, God. It's like inching forward. Will it let us go here?
Defending a nation.
It's just the C-SPAN servers.
Lots of things are happening, but then what happened with China was
I can find it another way.
Ensuring the health of the sailors, but also.
Okay, that's a while ago.
But he wanted
to. Okay. I'm going to tackle this another direction. So if anyone's still watching, hold on. Function. Give me a second here. Let's do this. We're at 424. Oh, come on. Don't make me sign in. Here we go. Give me a second. Let's go to live. Fox will cover it. Start from the beginning.
We get along.
And
okay, he was very generous yesterday in particular.
Now we're watching the Fox feed. And let's back up to the end.
I'll tell you, again, I say it, but I watch those doctors and nurses and medical people running into those hospitals, and they don't even have their gear on.
There's the
Forget
answer.
about gear,
Hold
whether
on.
it's great gear or not, and we're bringing in the best gear in the world. But they're running in with open everything, and they're...
He's answering the question with talking about
like
doctors and nurses' gear, and I think the question was OAN. But let's keep going back until we find it.
That we made,
holy crap, look at the length of this answer. Yeah?
Note, what has been the most significant signal that your relationship with Democrats below the leadership level
So
have
that's
changed
at,
for the good of America?
let's call it 10 minutes.
Because there is
and he kept
bipartisanship.
going.
We're getting the paycheck plan. It's already $350.
So that was a 9-minute answer.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, she's gone. Boom. So that's the Fox feed. It's done now. Okay, so I'll hang around for again. And yes, Amanda Juliet, we are the guys who made the Impeach You parody. I can send you a link if you've forgotten where it is. You can find that on my channel, youtube.com/KevinLeeFather. Or I think you just go to YouTube and search Kevin Lee Father. I think you can actually... Oh, yeah. Hey, go to KevinLeeFather.com. Find me on Twitter, @KevinLeeFather. Subscribe to me on YouTube. That actually helps. Once this is all done, if I can get to 10,000 subscribers, I can use YouTube Studio. Things are changing pretty rapidly. We're making a big life change right now because of what's going on with the coronavirus. More details on that later. Because of that, I probably won't be broadcasting tomorrow. I may be. We just have to kind of, like the Trump presidency, well, let's see what happens. We'll see what happens. You know better than anybody. We'll see what happens. So, thanks everyone for hanging around. I hope everyone out there is safe. I hope you stay safe, and I hope you have a good couple of days until you see me again. I think that's about it. Yep, everybody, goodbye. I'm going to end the broadcast here, and see you hopefully in a couple of days. Possible tomorrow. Watch my Twitter feed. That's where I usually announce whether I'm going to do it or not. So you guys all take care. Be good. And